gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I'm audible. I invite a very esteemed panel of architects and some of the leaders of the construction industry, product industry. It's been an exciting sort of agenda, today for us to sort of divulge and understand what has been talked about quite frequently in our space, more so because the responsibility of sustainability has grown into a new paradigm shift, rather than becoming implicitly important and imperative in every bit of work that we do. I would invite Mr. Hafeez, Contractor, to present a note to share his experience and ideation on this bit. Sir, over to you.
Hi. Thank you, Ravindra. I thought that you were going to ask me questions and I'm supposed to answer your question. But today, I would say that we are in a time and age that we are in a very, very crucial situation. And everybody talks and everybody knows about climate change. And we are seeing it in each and every manner all over the world and everywhere, also in India. But there are many, many things that are being done all over the world. But, use of renewable energy, forestation, so many things are happening. And we also have been a part of the Paris Accord. We also promised certain things. India has promised that from our existing cover of forest, we will also increase our cover of forest. But all of those have to be done. Now, we as architects, now, for anything about climate change, we just can't say that we have a solution and I'm going to talk in this 15 minutes or whatever, 10 minutes for everything. I would like to concentrate on India and as architects, what can we do? Now, we have, everybody knows that we have a very large population. We have about 1.3 billion people. Our population to the world's population, they are virtually like 18% of the world's population. And we have only about 2.4% of the land. That is one part. We have a growing population. Another thing that has to be known is that since a long, long time, since the independence and everything, we as our governments have not taken care of our urban areas. It was so that I feel that, and I sincerely say that housing, and how we are utilizing our land, is going to be the future of our country. And when I say housing, I mean, our cities, because housing comprises the major part. Now you must have realized, I don't know which city you are from, but how many people live in slums in Mumbai? How many people live, one out of every two lives in slum in Mumbai. The same thing, 1 out of 3 in Calcutta, 1 out of 4 in Chennai, and 1 out of 5 in Delhi. And these figures are rising. Now, that is one part. The other part is India, as the forecast goes, we are a very, very young population. And we need so many more hospitals, we need schools, we need housing for all of them. And when we are talking about all that, there is another very major point is affordability. From other side, now we are seeing that the government has gone and it is wanting to do, okay, a lot. But we are every few days and all that, we hear of this townships and this new city being developed, this new city being developed. What I'm trying to say, we are using and we are gobbling our farmland, okay? So from one side, if you look at the statistics of our distribution, general distribution, okay, as far as all the statistics are concerned, there are lots and lots of different statistics. Like from our total, that 18% of 2.4% of land, virtually 61 is agriculture and rural. Now we as a country have about 7%. Certain other statistics say we are going right up to 10% as urban, which is a very high figure. All over the world, it rolls around about 2 to 3%. We have only 23% as forest cover. Now, that also, the actual forest cover is only 10%. We have promised that we are going to raise it to 33%. Okay, I don't know how the hell we are going to do it. And 9% is wetland. What am I trying to get is that the way we are saying that let us build this, every city say new township, new areas to be developed. Okay, and the farmers are just giving off the land because they are not earning enough, so they are giving to the cities. They are plotting and selling off. So we are reducing our farmland. Now, where is this farmland going to go? They are going to gobble the forest land. So the main thing is how we are going to make our design our cities. Okay, not by you see every city there's plotted development taking place because that's one of the most easiest way of a fellow getting economic housing. So first, how we are going to do create housing which is economical, how we are not going to increase and gobble the farmland, how we are going to increase our forest land. So in this forum, I can only jump to that we have to take our cities. Like, look at Mumbai. What is happening? Now, Naina has started, we have taken over, so many thousands of acres. Look at Ahmedabad. What was Ahmedabad? Now it is one ring road, second ring road, third ring road. Look at each and every city. They are just expanding. Okay. Instead of that, you retain your city, increase your density. I have been talking about increasing FSI since so many years, and I was always taken as a big joke that this guy only wants FSI. If you have 5 people in your house, any fool will tell you that you at least have to have sleep beds for 5 people, or at least place to sleep for 5 people. You can't just say that, you take care of it. Okay. That is how, it is with our population. So what we need to do, first and foremost, we just cannot increase our city limits. We have to plan. And whenever every city, when it is increasing its city limits also, they are making another very, very big mistake. If the city has 3 FSI or 4 FSI, whatever they have increased, there they will give 1.5. Why? It is just because the city has got that FSI, over here virtually half. First of all, think about how many people you have to house in the future, in the next 10 years, next 15 years, okay? And increase that FSI to that extent. And we had done a calculation. that if you have to house all the people of Mumbai without, you take out, like say Mumbai, you take out, what is in the Sanjay Gandhi National Park, this, railway land, university land, this. Finally, you are left with 150 square kilometers. Okay. Now, if you divide that, you are going to give to each and every guy only 500 square feet, the FSI was going 8. FSI was going 8. So what I'm getting to is we have to virtually completely revamp our urban laws. We have to concentrate on condensed, dense, high density, layered cities. Then and then only we will be able. We have to think about, why am I talking about agricultural land that you cannot keep on gobbling? We have to think about our food securities. Forget about, we are not even thinking, okay. So this is one part that I feel is very, very important. Another part.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Another part is we have to learn how to utilize the smallest of the material in the right manner. We started, at least in our office, we have started, and we started, when the pandemic started. What can we do? We started studying all our old plans, and we came up with a design solution that in 1 lakh square feet, previously, if I was making 100 flats, okay, now with the new formula and the new design principle, I can make 110 of the same size. Okay, and with a much economic structure, so it's cheaper structure, more number of people, okay, and thinking about it, that how you can go higher and with more density, okay, that building would be more adaptable to that also. Okay. Now, with all of this, we have to again think about how you are going to make our future cities and our future area, urban area, affordable. Now, that's another major question. Okay. Now, I'll leave it to you to ask me some other questions. If you have, otherwise, I will say bye.
So thank you, Hafeez. On that note, I remember many years back, we both were together on an Infosys prize. It was a competition. We met with NRN. I think it was in 2004 or 5.
Oh,
you were building a few
but having this long beard of yours?
Yeah, now it has changed a bit, yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I remember we had a constructive discussion at that point of time saying as to how a corporate like Infosys has brought about change on the idea of ethics, on the idea of a green certification program, and how they've managed to look at the factor of density. I remember hearing your voice in the same sort of gamut where you were talking about how they must change the nature of low-rise to a high-rise idea so that there is more land saved.
Correct. And I've been telling all the universities everywhere, they want 500 acres, 300 acres. We made a study and gave it to the central government, to the education government. And I said, IITs don't need 500 acres. We made a study, gave it to them. They can be fitted in 150. IIM can be fitted in so much. Everybody wants more land.
I think it's one definite vision, which is kind of a paradigm shift, if I can call it. I remember in one of the World Architecture Festivals, Zaha Hadid's team was talking about why should we leave Central Park as what it is, and why can't we build on top of Central Park, to deconglomerate the whole of New York City. So there was, and then build a park or a park space in a different method and also bring it out of the city rather than congest the whole, game plan. I see your point absolutely in terms of how you are looking at it as an alternative. Here, I will go ahead, please.
There's one more point, which everybody doesn't seem to understand. yes, we will have new ways of having new cars, electric cars. We will have new ways of manufacturing electricity. Land is one item which you cannot manufacture. So land is a precious commodity, and everything that we do has to be certification with have you utilized the land in the right manner, and that with the Indian standards, the Indian population.
Yes.
Okay, so how much land you have. Okay, all our Indian population is a young population. They are eating more, they are drinking more. Okay, they are wasting also more food. So where is all that food going to grow? So food securities, water securities. We just cannot gobble land. You can go high. You can stay on 50th floor, 60th, 70th, 80th, but you cannot have farmland on top of it. Okay, so I'm saying
I agree with you. It's a very deep point to dwell and introspect in terms of how habitation can happen in very high-rise structures. I invite Sunita here to bring in your idea. If I have to quote Schulz, Norbert Schulz, to dwell means to belong to a given space. Do you think we need to be non-terrestrial? Do you think we need to go away from the ground and the earth space and the horizontal and look at an idea, as Hafeez is talking about, live in the sky? Or what do you think is the solution to this agenda, sustainability, what Hafeez has triggered? Sunita.
I think Hafeez made some very good points, but to which I can add or maybe differ a little bit, that whilst you densify spaces in a city, you cannot densify public spaces, because that, according to me, becomes undemocratic. Because a city should belong to all stratas of working people. I mean, we all belong to the working classes, having said that. But so firstly, I think there have to be ways of densification, and that because urban planning and city planning has to go through ministries and through political will, I think all architects have to be very sentient of that and really think beyond what may be personal profit, and really speak up, because architecture, as Alain Bertrand said in The Architecture of Happiness, I mean, he says that he analyzed human surroundings, and that through beauty comes happiness, and it is that ideal of architecture that we should actually all be striving towards. Architecture, interior architecture. But you see, here the collective is much more important than an individual building, I think. I mean, you had written to us about genus loci, which I found very interesting that you had brought it in, and which perhaps you wanted to discuss, is really the spirit of the place. And that also happens with proper urban design. The individual then becomes buildings, but there has to be a very important demarcation, and that is where architects and urban planners play such a quintessentially important role. And that is to help to guide what can be densified and what should be left as public spaces. I mean, to begin with, I would say this, because I think these are sort of essential things that lead towards happiness. And maybe then, like T.S. Eliot, what he said in the Four Quartets in Little Gidding, he said, "We shall not cease from exploration." And at the end he says, "and come back to the same place." So what is the stimuli that we are looking for is what one finds, which is multisensory, which you might find in the countryside, in farmlands, in forests. And if we can replicate that multisensory experience in our cities, our towns, and even our mohallas, I think that to me is the ideal of architecture.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your critique on this idea is very relevant because there is an exploration of experience. It's about touch and feel and the position of memory, where you come from and what you've grown with and what you're sort of implicitly genetically coded, rather than jump into a kind of a complete paradigm shift.
That's true. Yeah.
Hafeez, looks like you want to say something.
Ravindra,
Yeah.
We are in our generation is right now, we are the only generation who can do something about what is happening about the climate change. We have to have solutions, okay? And when I'm saying densification does not mean that we are not going to have public spaces. We'll be having much, much bigger, grander public spaces. We have to, the problem is that today our urban laws are antiquated laws. We still have zonings on, in one plane. We have to think about zoning in layers. Think about world population when from 7 billion it will go to 14 billion. Okay, the world population every 10 years is increasing. Where are we going to grow? Where are we going to have our food? All of that, we have to think of the future. The mullah and all that, okay, fine. We will create better mullahs, but that does not mean that we need new laws. We have to have new policies. And unless and until we think about future, how you're going to help them, okay, then and then only will be successful. See, we are, we have to leave this earth in a way that it is fit for our future generation. We just cannot live and, squander of everything.
No, I agree with you, because at the time when, brutalism sort of became very active as a style idea in the West, the kind of architecture that it created presented an assumption of being international, anywhere, seamlessly non-contextual. And they went into a paradigm shift. They believed in an idea which had to completely change the way we would approach a problem to resolve a solution. I invite Eric here. Eric, what is your punch on what Sudhita and Hafeez have just sort of striked, as a fire? What do you think?
My take on this is a little different. There's an urgency that you're all kind of missing here, right? The recent IPCC report assessment, the final assessment, was called a code red for humanity. It's a large ringing bell saying that we need to stop burning fossil fuels immediately. I don't know if we have the luxury to discuss, genus loci and placemaking at a time like this. With all due respect, I think that the boat is on fire and it's sinking, and we need to find ways to put it out. We've basically been told that our hope of keeping things below 1.5 degrees C is now non-existent, that the carbon that's already in the atmosphere will continue to be there for decades. And so even if we stop burning fossil fuels tomorrow, we're still going to feel the effects worse and worse than we are today. There are a lot of brutal facts facing us as architects. The first one is that climate change is changing everything, whether we like it or not. Number two is that this liability is going to make entire regions unavailable. And by regions, I mean both geographic regions and whole industries. Number three, we still don't have a viable low carbon alternative to concrete, and we keep building buildings out of concrete. Number four, the sheer demand for materials and the combat for materials that we're having with China consuming all the natural resources on the planet is going to demand that we need to start looking at engineered living materials. We're going to need to start growing building materials instead of harvesting them. And then finally, number five, we need to accept the fact that we really haven't embraced technology in any meaningful way. We haven't seen any productivity gains compared to other industries. We haven't scaled construction, sped construction. We still are very dependent on labor and raw material extraction in order to do that. And if we keep building the way we've been building for the last 200 years, we're going to blow our entire carbon budget. So I look at it in a much more urgent way. We need to build net zero energy buildings now. We need to look at the embodied carbon of every single building now and what it's made of. We need to use every tool in our toolbox, including that of using natural systems. That's bioremediation, phytoremediation, microremediation, all the things that nature does for free, we need to really leverage, and we need to measure everything measurable. One of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to just stop putting fossil fuel infrastructure into our buildings immediately, because the idea that burning anything to heat up water or heat up air is just silly, knowing what we now know. That's where I'm coming from, a much more urgent place. You know, we used to talk about climate change in terms of how it was going to affect our grandchildren. And now we talk about climate change and how it's going to affect us.
I see your point, Eric. Absolutely. I think the practice of engineering and how architects can ideate engineering has to drastically change in terms of the building, both in terms of the construction, materiality, and the services aspect of how we would program the building, not just talking about, you know, the aesthetic of it or the idea of its belonging and, you know, but in all this, you know, human habitation, you know, I think that is primordial. The human experience is primordial. With this kind of a thing, I want to invite Manit. Is Manit on? I can't see him. Sumisha, is Manit on?
Ravi, I'm just trying to reach him. It just dropped out. I think there's an issue in the bandwidth. Let me just reach out.
Oh, okay, I saw
we'll circle back.
Yeah, let me invite Anubhav. You are building, you know, fabulous volumes in the greater part of Mumbai, and it is important that your numbers have to work. I'm not trying to critique the idea of development, but development is absolute. But you've been very responsible, you know, humongously responsible in the way you build. So if you have to critique the idea of build more, you know, save land, you know, be non-terrestrial, what is your take on the idea of such a existentialism?
So firstly, thank you for having me on the panel. I'm going to not wear my architect hat, I'm going to wear my developer hat. And I have to agree with Eric, because I think the urgency is now, in fact, it was yesterday. You know, and for us, as you said, we are in the business of development, and we are trying, and I'd say trying, you're very kind that we are doing it responsibly, but we are trying to do it as responsibly as possible. Few things here. Climate change is definitely real. We are going through our resources, you know, at the rate which is unprecedented. I think COVID has been an interesting revelation. I like to see the positive in negatives. So, you know, it's shown us the silver lining. When humanity stopped doing what they were doing, the air was cleaner, the grass was greener, you know, all of that stuff. For us, we look at it from a life cycle perspective. While as architects, I think we can certainly influence a big part of it. We see sustainability as a collective responsibility. So we try to look at it across 6 P's of, you know, people, process, products, partnership, profit, and the planet, right? Also, we look at it from a life cycle standpoint, right? It's about, you know, when you need to make a new building, what happens to it, how much resources go into it, when you conceptualize it, design it, when you build it, maybe when you demolish it, what happens, you know, after that. So for us, there are 3 big picture goals, if you may. We want to be a water positive company. We want to be a carbon neutral company. We want to minimize waste to landfills. So all of that goes through our entire group's culture, and Godrej Properties is no different, right? So very happy to report that we're a water positive company, but the problem here is that we are doing it mostly on the back of offsets. So as you know, we will use a lot of water for development, but we are trying our best to minimize our water footprint in how much water we use. But we are doing other things. For example, areas in rural Maharashtra, which we've taken up, where there was major drought issues, to green it and do things like that. Similarly, we are a carbon neutral company, but only across scope 1 and 2 emissions. Scope 3 emissions are the big deal, and that's what's going to take us time. We are working on a very non-sexy part of this, which is minimizing waste to landfill. And I can tell you that and I'm sorry to pick on elements here which are not sort of big picture, right? This is the operational side of things, right? I don't think half of the people on this panel, even, and I was included, know where our waste is going, how it is tagged, what is happening to it, what happens to the landfills. And I say this with the utmost humility that I've been on panels and I used to be one of the architects talking about all this big stuff. When it came down to actually getting it done, it wasn't about just designing a great building. It was about just making sure that, all of this stuff actually works, right? And just a couple of quick points I wanted to make. I saw the previous presentation about home automation. I think we've got a lot of technology that we can leverage. Every time I see a home automation, and this is not a critique, but I just want to say it. Every time I see a home automation presentation, a lot of it is about experience. It could be about sustainability and telling us how, when, what we can regulate to do, even whether, how much water we're using, how much electricity we're using. We've got amazing innovation and technology today, which we did not have yesterday, right? I don't know if we're using that well enough to tell us, post-occupancy research and sustainability was a big thing when I was a student, right? Nobody wanted to do it because it was completely not sexy. Well, I can get data right now of how much electricity I used in my air conditioner. I can get it to switch off, and it's good for business too, right? It's great for our customers too, because if they only want to spend whatever it is, 3,000 rupees a month, they can do it. And then they can see what the benefits are. So,
Wow.
so what I want to say is that, look, let's stop talking about the big, sexy ideas. Let's get down to business. This shit is real, and it's going to come and bite us. You're on mute, I think, Ravindra.
Yeah, we hear your point. Absolutely, Anubhav. I've been building Nirlawn Knowledge Park since 2003 in Bombay, behind the Hub Mall. And we kind of programmed and wedged so much that we must try and use less concrete. It is an FSI which is 4.5, 3.75, very close to the airport. I don't know whether Hafeez has ever wedged on the besides the site and seen the terracotta tower, screaming up. Now,
I just wanted to say decarbonization is a big thing. ESG is a big thing. Architects need to get themselves educated about this stuff because they're going to play a part.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the agenda is about engineering and about using less and about using the materials which regard the sense of responsibility in terms of what it has as a carbon footprint. And I believe that when a building comes down, what we build, we've done Nirlawn, almost 8.5 million square feet there. But at some point of time, when it goes back to ground, how much of it will disappear into ground and become earth is also very, very important. Here, I bring back Hafeez. Have you ever thought of not doing it in concrete? I mean, Eric made a mention that, and I agree with him, it's the most miserable material invented on the planet over the last 100 years and most aggressively used because it's convenient for us as architects. We don't know sometimes.
Okay, if you're asking me, have you ever thought about not using concrete. There was one client who came to my office, and she was a bureaucrat, and she wanted to build schools, 500 schools in the villages of Maharashtra. I asked her, "What's your budget?" So she said, "My budget is 1,10,000 per school." Okay. So I thought to myself, and I said, "My God, and 1,10,000." So she only said that, I know that in 1,10,000 we can't do anything. Okay. So I thought for 5 minutes, and I said, "No, you're going to build schools in the villages of Maharashtra. Okay. There, how many students here? So we have 40, 50 and things like that." I gave her an idea that we can build this whole school with a compound where people will come and leave their small kids. So we made a wall, which in villages you get lots and lots of mud. There's stone, there is mud, there is rabbit, earth. So we made a 6 feet thick wall going about 4 or 5 feet. We said that we should buy all windows and doors. In every village, you have a shop where they sell old windows and doors. Okay. So we made a door, 2 toilets, sheds, and we made the school in 1,10,000. Okay. And we made it in mud and stone. So all materials are good. Okay. Yes. See, I think I am talking something completely different. I respect everyone what they're talking about. But to me, that's a smaller part. What you have to think about the future. And as India, where are we going to house all of these people? How many people in the whole of India live in slums? You have to house them. And unless and until the government of India looks at housing as the biggest infrastructure and houses each and every person, we will not be a prosperous country. Because if the guy who is living in a slum and he doesn't have a proper house, he doesn't have a proper toilet, doesn't have proper electricity, how is he going to contribute to the country? So it's as I said, I'm looking at it only from, anyway, okay, go ahead, please.
No, I align with you, and I'm impressed that a practice of your scale is able to suddenly disconnect and build in a very new, sort of epitome, which is beautiful. So thank you on that introduction to the school project. Sunita, you've seen decades of architecture, interiors. You are a sort of a pedestal for the country, and in terms of the work that you've done with many prime ministers and many government missionaries, I can only see parallels to Charles, who probably was such a champion to build with the government, and I can see you as the other kind of a person. So when I look at Leonardo's statement that there is no such a thing as away when we throw away, right? In your space, in the volumes of work that you've done over decades, how have you brought about change from the way you started to what you're doing? And can you critique this particular statement and read your take on it?
Well, firstly, thank you very much for the statement that you have made. Charles Correa was a great friend of mine. And actually, we worked a lot together, particularly in Delhi. I mean, we sat on a very major committee that looked after the central buildings of Delhi, from Rashtrapati Bhavan, etc. And then we worked on the British Council building. He was the architect and I was the interior designer, and we had 2 or 3 other people.
I used to be his chauffeur whenever he was in Bangalore, for him and Monica.
I see.
Yeah.
So they're old friends. Charles is certainly an old friend. And he was, the thing about Charles was that he was a brilliant theorist. Apart from, there was this huge architectural intellect that he had. And I think that is also very important, because You see the lack of it when you go to some of the best architectural schools in our country. So one is to be a great architect. The other thing is also to teach architectural theory so that it benefits those that are to come. Because unless you give them, only after giving them knowledge can they become, does wisdom arise. To come back to what you asked me, I think that what he said, that if you may throw away anything, but does it actually go away? No, it doesn't. And this is, I think your panelist Eric spoke about, and I entirely agree with him, that the absolute urgent responsibility of architects, urban planners, designers, call them what you will, is that how are we going to address what is staring us in the face? I mean, it's no longer, it'll be 2030 when we might have, we might come to a zero figure, 2050. No, we are experiencing it now. So what is it that we are doing now? That should be the main, I mean, you might take away from land and throw it into the ocean, but what are you doing to the ocean? Or you might be building something on land, but you're putting it up into the atmosphere. So how are we going to plan so that everything that we do, either we save energy or we stop polluting? I mean, there have to be multi-pronged approaches. And I think the sooner we all recognize that, I have certainly seen that, to give you a very small example, that all these huge bills of electricity have been very sharply brought down because we started using solar energy much more. There's much more of water harvesting in, I'm not saying in private places, but in government places or in institutions. And I think that is a change for the good, but it's happening in such small pockets that it's almost irrelevant. Yes. So this is where policy making comes in. I mean, things have to be, sorry.
No, absolutely. I agree with you that the position of how we bring program and engineering and bring in stakeholders who will dictate the law, and policy will bring also an equitable change to what we are talking about.
Because nothing can happen without that.
Absolutely.
Without policies, nothing can happen.
I completely agree with you. Yes. But here, holding a host of architects, I was thinking, if we go back a bit into the theory of what we do, Eric, when you read Palasma's skin rigorism, there is so much celebration about the architecture of the skin. And when I go back, a couple of years back, when I visited Lisbon and saw Charles building, the Champalimo, the Fundación de Champalimo, I mean, what he built in an international sort of perspective is spectacular, where, the parallels of it was only seen with what Khan did for the Salk Institute. And there is an architecture of experience, and it's not an architecture about skin. So I want to bring Eric to comment and state his idea of it, either agree or disagree, and then I want to invite Hafeez to talk about it, about skin rigorism and your perception to that in its relevance today. Eric.
Oh gosh, I'm going to show my age a little bit, because I'm basically an old romantic when it comes to architecture. I remember the first time I saw the Pantheon in Rome. I ran there. I just landed. I was so excited to see it, and I ran there, and I was sweaty, and I was hot, and I had my backpack on, and I turned into the piazza, and there it was, and I walked through those 14-foot thick walls, and you could hear the sun sizzling on the stone, and then your eyes adjust to the dark, and you look up, and you see the oculus and the light beaming through, and I can still remember it 30 years, whatever it's been later, right? So I'm a big fan of architectural experiences, like all of you, I imagine. but I don't know if we're doing that anymore. It seems like we've relegated special architectural experiences to only special buildings. You know, they build a new museum and that's a special building, and maybe you'll get an architectural experience there. But houses, apartment buildings, hotels, you know, government buildings, those are not special enough to warrant an architectural experience, apparently. And I'd like to see us use our skills for good and really transform the lives of everybody on a regular daily basis. And I think if we do that, we'll start to see people value what we do and our problem solving skills, and maybe actually get paid a decent wage for our work finally, right? If we can bring that to everybody. So there's a democracy to architecture that needs to be brought back, where we bring these experiences to everybody, not just the rich people and not just the special buildings, but literally everybody. I mean,
yeah, I seldom typecast it. I agree with you, but I would also disagree a bit, saying that every piece of architecture that we can explore, for me, primarily should be experiential. And then, of course, skin is an absolute need of how we deal with it. I will invite Hafeez here to comment. Your architecture has been very evidently visible and popular for its skin. Also, I'm saying, other than, of course, everything else that has happened.
I am really sorry to interrupt. Mr. Sunil wants to make a point. Is there a question that you have for him as well?
Sure. So I request Hafeez to comment. I was talking about skin rigorism as defined by Palasma. It's become such an important aspect of architecture today that have we forgotten everything else that we learned and lived with the great masters? Hafeez.
Okay. When you're talking about skin, when I started in 82 in Mumbai, there was nothing like architecture. And in Mumbai, everybody talks about square inches and square foots, okay? And also not only that, open spaces. So in that, the only thing that I could do where there was no FSI was those 2 feet 6 inches, okay? And another reason why this 2 feet 6 inches, in those times, there was only frame structure, so there was 9 inches external wall. Now, 9 inches, first of all, architecture. Secondly, all these buildings used to leak. So I came up with a solution that I made that 9 inches wall 6 inches, and that after 2 feet 6 inches, I made another 6 inches wall. Okay, so I made like a raincoat for my buildings. First of all, I gave the user 6 inches more to use, and I gave a raincoat to the user so that his building will never leak. And another thing, I gave to the developer another 6 inches more to sell. So I satisfied, and that became, and a lot of people started calling it the 2 feet 6 inches architecture. But my architecture came about for a reason. Each and every building of mine, everybody thinks that, I'm doing a stunt. I'm not doing a stunt. I'm doing it for a purpose. Okay. So that was my thing about 2 feet 6 inches architecture. Okay.
Super. Thank you. Thank you.
Probably we have other panelists waiting as well.
Yes. I want to invite Rahul. Your industry is doing an avant-garde. You're saying shun walls, don't build block work. We don't need any more masonry. We don't need plaster. You're coming up with ideas which will completely be a didactic shift to what we've all lived. What is your comment with regards to the qualification of sustainability of your product and your engineering idea?
Thanks, Ravindra. See, at Everest, everything we do stems from an eco-friendly, low-carbon footprint, green concepts. They have to be efficient and a forward-thinking philosophy. See, typically in India, when pollution levels are high in Delhi, first thing that the Delhi government clamps down on is they say stop construction. stop vehicles. There's poor monsoons in another part of India. There's a water shortage. What happens? The government puts a hold on construction. Now, somebody was telling me the other day, to cure 1 square meter of walls, the water consumed is something like 350 liters. I don't know whether that's fact or fiction, but this is the number that was quoted to me. We constantly see shortages in sand, and you have this term called sand mafia, which keeps cropping up, and there's black marketing of sand, there's conventional brick, which is being controlled due to topsoil erosion that it leads to. Deforestation is another area which is a concern area where all of us are concerned. And lastly, I think somebody also spoke about the construction debris being another problem. So when we conceive our products and look at our products, we try and tackle these issues and solve for them. Our basic philosophy and vision is to improve lives by reimagining spaces. And we would like the entire building ecosystem or construction ecosystem to start thinking and reimagining design in terms of reimagined design, efficiency, and sustainability in a fashion where it doesn't impact the environment and also helps conserve the natural environment. So Hafeez spoke a lot about conserving land use. Somebody spoke about water conservation. These are all important aspects that we need to look at today.
No, absolutely. I think what you state and what you have brought about as an idea to a new material is very, very significant. And I've seen some of the buildings that in Ahmedabad, especially how they have used it as a secondary sort of lower panel to shade the building by Bimal Patel is fantastic, the Safal building. And I think the quality of the product and its exhibition is fabulous. So there are many ways of looking at it. Is Manit here? Manit?
Ravindra, I would just like to add, please.
Ravi, Manit is not here.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Ravindra, I'd just like to see the products are designed to help also the customer gain some lead and griha points. These are factory-made products. They challenge the age-old system of brick and mortar, wet construction, and other conventional systems. They are much lighter, they are more durable, and pre-finished and easy to install. Therefore, they reduce the construction time considerably. And as we go along, we keep getting feedback from all of you. We will keep evolving and innovating. I think that's what the world is all about.
Absolutely. Thank you on that. I have a question. We all use AutoCAD. We all are kind of slaves to that program, and we are trying to always explore a possibility not to use AutoCAD, and we end up using AutoCAD. What has AutoCAD done over the last decade to participate in this age? Because obviously we use your software extensively to explore and vision what we can do, whether it is a building which connects to sustainability or not. But how has AutoCAD looked at all this?
Ravi, looks like we have Sunil dropped out here.
Oh, he's
trying
out.
to get him back.
Oh, okay. Then we'll redirect the question to Sunil later. I'll pull back Hafeez to talk about the point.
I think we can also conclude the conversation.
Sure, exactly. I want to take that to the last point that we were looking at is about, for us, the greatest threat to our planet is always that we believe that someone else will save it, right? It's not maybe us only, we are just one individual, and there is something else that will, like it's the engineering part of it or the services part of it. So I would request everybody on the panel as a last comment to add to that, and also to recognize if there is a need to bring in a phenomena and the aspect of the phenomenology of architecture. That means to say whether we need to stop doing what we are doing and reframe our perspective. So these are the 2 points. I will request Hafeez to start, and then I will request every panelist to make a comment, and then we will conclude if there are any questions. And yeah, go ahead.
In fact, I have been talking about, and I've talked also today, not that, what other panelists said that is not important, but I am saying that we have to get to a different level. We have to devise a new way of construction, cheaper, faster, better, higher. We have to think about carbon concrete, which, is going to be, we can go for more than, because think about how many people are going to be there in this world in the next 20 years. Where are they going to live? Where is the water? Where is the food? All of that. And for that, we need a complete transformation from basic to laws. We have, urban laws are completely different. We have to change them. We have to think about new ways of living. And unless and until, and this is what I said, that our generation, we have to do something. Because if, it's like a wheelbarrow, if it starts rolling down the hill, we won't be able to stop it. Right now, it is on top of the hill. It might just start rolling. We have to stop it and think about it. And then what I'm saying, we have solutions, but the government, everyone has to get up and do something about it. And unless and until we change our old ways, the old ways are wrong. Unless and until we change our old ways, think out of the box. And I say that, what I'm thinking, I want to do it. I'm proposing it to a lot of government, but it is getting done in a minuscule way, which I don't know.
And if you have to critique the idea of a phenomena, have you ever woken up one day and said, I'm not going to build the way I'm doing now. I have to do a new way.
I this every day. That's why we invent, that's why we started this zero waste architecture. That's why I've been taking plans of some other guys and also saying, see, you can do, one tower, you can do 50 flats more. There was one thing which I got from one of my builders, where I gave him 150 flats more in that same complex. So we have to be doing that. So, there are lots of things one can do.
Lovely. Thank you for that. I will invite Sunita.
I fully agree with what Hafeez has just said, that what we have to do, the changes we have to bring about is now. Most important, I'm repeating it almost ad nauseum, it has to begin from policy making. And that is where architects and urban planners should speak in a collective voice, not for individual gain. Now, if that is possible in a society, because we live in a selfish time, otherwise we would not have had these huge disparities. Sorry for being so frank and blunt, but this is the way it is. But I think collectively, with a collective will, there is so much pressure that can be brought, because I think architects can be the greatest influencers, because this is the most visual thing that you see in the countryside. And this is the most visual thing that you see in cities. And of course, visuality, or we just can't be visual centric, because the whole thing is that what you will do for the greater good, that will see to it that everybody is the enjoyment of everything. I mean, phenomenology has a lot to do with that. The experience for all across strata is democratically being designed.
And if you have to ask that one question of saying, if given an opportunity, I don't want to
Ravi, I'm really sorry to interrupt, but we really need to conclude this.
Sure. Then I'll
The next panel meeting, yes.
Yes, Eric, your last comment. We will have this chat again, Sunita. So,
I'll do this in 15 seconds.
Yes.
India is facing an unprecedented crisis. Of all the top 10 most affected countries at climate risk, you're number 7. So, I agree with all of you, right, in your enthusiasm about it. But I think that there's an urgency and a paradigm shift that we're all not mentally ready for. And I see it as a great opportunity. I see it as the chance to redesign everything. And since we're all designers, maybe this is the greatest challenge we'll ever face.
Thanks, Eric. Thank you. Anurag, 10 seconds.
Yeah, just I'm going to take a completely a critic's approach to this. I'm sorry. I think all of us are externalizing the problem, and it is a collective issue. We need a systems approach, and it is not policy. It is not, I don't think, and I'm really sorry, I mean this with utmost respect. I don't think as architects we are doing what we need to do to fix the problem, right? No one, I mean, you guys are still building for your clients the way they want you to build. At the end of the day, you're doing your best within those constraints. It's still not going to be a paradigm shift. It's not going to change things, right?
War will be on.
Yeah, and the last part is on phenomenology. I mean, these are all fancy words, but I do want to say that can't sustainability be an experience? I think we could totally do it, and we could market it as such, and people will buy it.
Thank you. Rahul, your closing comment.
Ravindra, has been a journey where we have learned from architects and designers what requirements of modern construction are, and based on which we are constantly evolving products and service offerings. See, modern day architects and designers understand the requirements of sustainability, environment, energy, building cycle efficiency are far better today than was done years back. And they are willing to adapt to new technologies, which is phenomenal. And we are there to work with all of you to try and see where we can reach on this journey together.
Thank you. Thank you, Indrajit. Thank you, Sumisha. I think we hope that today's discussion did bring in a punch to the understanding of what we are doing. It will let us introspect a little more. And I'm sure, as Anubhav said, architects, I think every building is not the end of the journey. It's only a beginning to relearn and sort of reframe our skins to what we can do to the future. And we have a lot to learn, obviously, from Hafeez and Sunita, your work, and of course, Eric and all of you on the panel have shared immensely to the planet, and there'll be more learning for all of us to introspect. Thank you, Sumisha.
Thank you, everybody. That was a really, really insightful panel, and thank you so much for joining us. And thanks, Ravi, for moderating this. I think we're really tight on time, so we need to move on to the next panel. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.